Yo, what's up? In this series, we're going up against the Oakland Athletics. In Game 1, we have Taijuan Walker versus Kendall Graveman. In Game 2, Happ versus Sonny Gray. And in Game 3, Felix Hernandez versus Scott Kazmir. So I'm going to be showing Game 1 in this series, and let's get into it. This is our lineup for Game 1. This right here is most likely going to be our standard / daily lineup throughout the season, as long as everyone performs well. But this right here is our lineup for this game, and then you got the Oakland Athletics lineup. So let's see how we do. So along with the gameplay, the one thing I wanted to talk about in this video was my roster and how I plan to manage the team throughout the season. So that's going to be a big focus point in this video. This right here, it's kind of neat. Their first batter, kind of a really weak hit, but they did introduce challenges in this game, which I think it's pretty cool. I didn't end up challenging the play because I saw the replay and he was safe, but that could be vital throughout the season if we have big plays or close plays that can really change the game up. So I like that they introduced that in MLB 15, and hopefully it'll be useful throughout the season. But they did get a big hit right there, and they did score a run early on. But let's talk about our roster. So you saw very early on in this video a glimpse of what my daily roster should be like. So we had Austin Jackson, Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, Kyle Seager, Logan Morrison, Dustin Ackley, Mike Zunino, and Brad Miller. Seth Smith and Justin Ruggiano, they're going to most likely platoon depending on pitching situations and pitching matchups. But those right there should be my team throughout the season, depending on how players perform. And really, the only players or positions I'm questionable about right now are Seth Smith and Ruggiano at right field, Brad Miller at shortstop, and maybe Morrison at first base. But Morrison and Smith, they did have a good first series, so I'm more optimistic that they will perform well throughout the season, or at least above average. I feel like they're good for right now. Brad Miller, he was hitless in the first series, so it's only the first series, so I'm not going to say much about it, but he's going to have a big performance moving forward to see if he will stay on this roster. Or he will stay on the roster, but he might not be starting throughout the season. Right here, we have bases loaded, a big situation with Robinson Cano up to bat, and he's going to hit the ball deep into the outfield, almost a grand slam. But we're going to miss that. We're going to miss that right there. But it is off the wall. He is going to pick up 2 RBI, so that's huge right there. But with our roster, I'm pretty content with it right now. One thing I should say, well, let me talk about the pitching rotation first. So the pitching rotation, we have King Felix, James Paxton, Hisashi Iwakuma, Taijuan Walker, and Happ. Right now, Hernandez, Paxton, Iwakuma, and Walker, they're a lock for the season. I'm a ride or die with them throughout the season. Those are going to be my top 4 no matter what. Right here, Nelson Cruz, NC Boomstick with the home run. His first of the season. That was a huge hit right there. And this is a big inning for us. But our pitching rotation, I'm pretty set with those 4. Happ, he's extendable right now. I'm not sure about him. I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep him or not. It's going to depend how he performs, but in the minors, I have Danny Holtzen and Roanis Elias, who will end up getting called up sometime in this season, and one of them most likely will be taking that slot. Those are the 2 that I'm more likely to call up, and I'm more likely to insert into the lineup if Happ doesn't perform as well. And then our bullpen, we have Wilhelmsen, Charlie Furbush, Danny Forquar, Tyler Olson, Carson Smith, and Yorvis Medina. Fernando Rodney closing. Now our bullpen, that's going to be a big question for us. Bullpen, that's an important piece for us because if we can't close out games, that's going to be a problem. Fernando Rodney, he's yet to come into the lineup yet. I didn't want to bring him in. I'm only going to pitch him if it's a save situation, really. I don't really feel it necessary to bring him in games if we're up 5-6 runs. So Fernando Rodney, he's going to be a big piece to this team because if we can't close out games, that's going to be an issue. If for some reason I struggle with him, I'm not sure who else I would bring in to close if that were to happen. right here, Taijuan Walker gets hit in the shoulder, but we did make a nice play to recover from that. That was a pretty nice play. But Taijuan Walker, he actually gets injured, which luckily it's nothing major. He's just going to miss the remainder of this game. So it wasn't anything major, but he will be pitching in his next slotted appearance. So our pitching rotation, let me get back to that. Well, mainly our bullpen. So our bullpen, that's going to be another key piece for our team moving forward, because closing out games is important, and if our bullpen performs poorly, we're definitely going to need to make changes. Now, in the minors, I don't have really that many options. I didn't mention Danny Holson and Roanis Elias earlier. One of them, like I said, if Happ struggles, will get into the starting rotation. The other one could be our long relief pitcher, but I would expect both of them to be called up sometime throughout this season, because those are two pitchers and players that I do want to play with throughout this season. So those are options that we will have. Now, other players that I want to play with are some of the Mariners' best prospects. So we have Alex Jackson, DJ Peterson, Ketel Marte, Gabriel Guerrero, Edwin Diaz. He's another pitcher that we could possibly bring in also. Tyler Marlette and Julio Morbin. So those are the prospects that I'm looking at. And eventually, I feel like I will call them all up, because I'm only playing one season, right? So I want to be able to at least play with each player that I want to play with throughout this season. So sometime in this season, more likely towards the end, because towards the end you can extend your roster. So players like that, they will have an opportunity to see what we can do with them in this season. So those are players that will get called up eventually. There's also players like James Jones, Steven Romero, Chris Taylor that played in the majors before that can be called up, and more likely than not, Chris Taylor could get called up depending on how Brad Miller plays. So that's another option and one we will look into. Now, our bench right now, we have Ricky Weeks, Jesus Sucre, Willie Bloomquist, and like I mentioned before, Ruggiano, who's platooning with Thess Smith. Now, I did mention those other two players in James Jones and Steven Romero. I do like them both, so they can come in and play outfield if we need them to, depending on how we have in our platoon situation. And then Ricky Weeks, I'm not really sure. I do like him as a player, but if he's not doing nothing, I mean, he's not going to play that much anyways. But if we have other options that are better, then we might switch that up. Now, another thing is our catcher and Sucre. We do have Jesus Montero, and I kind of feel like cheating the system here, because Montero, he can play. Well, he is slotted as a first baseman, but he has played catcher in the major leagues, and I feel like giving him that secondary as catcher, I know it's kind of cheap because, I mean, right now he doesn't have it, but for me to have one player that can play two positions that I need, two backup positions, I should say, it would make it easier, because then I don't have to worry. Then I can actually call up another player instead of having two different players fill out roles, because having people rest is going to be important throughout the season. We want to have them at their best every game, so there will definitely be games where we have to rest our star players and all that. So I want to have as many options as possible. Another thing I should mention is that I don't plan on making any trades throughout this season. I'm pretty happy with my roster, and I feel like even if my original roster doesn't perform well, we have players in the minor leagues that can step up and fill a good role. So making a trade this season, it's going to be very difficult to just think of a trade to make. And I did consider one trade right here. Mike Zunino hits a big blast, 2-run shot, which pretty much seals the deal for this game. But one trade that I will consider possibly is getting Ichiro, ex-Mariner, one of my favorite players, and one player that I wouldn't mind bringing on for this journey. But I'll leave that up to you guys if you would like to see Ichiro play on this team. But then again, like I said, I do feel pretty happy with the roster I have, and don't really feel it necessary to make any huge trades. That's the only trade I would consider. I feel like the 9 we have right now are pretty good, and then we have the prospects that we have that we can call up also. So I'm pretty sure, more likely than not, you guys rather would see a prospect get called up than make a trade and bring in a new player. So I'm pretty, like I said, I'm pretty content with keeping the roster like it is. Bullpen, it might be an issue. I don't have that many options to call up, so we'll see about the bullpen. But another thing that I should mention is I'm not planning to make any roster moves until I play at least a month of the season, because I need some kind of sample size for these players to see who's playing well, who's playing not. And still a month, it's kind of early, so give or take a month or two before we start making any major decisions, and then we'll go from there. Yorvis Medina, he gets his debut for the season right here. A quick 1-2-3 inning, and he's gonna finish this game off. So we end up picking up the victory, winning 7-3. It was a pretty good game for ourselves. Taijuan Walker, he did end up getting injured, but like I said, it's nothing major. Tyler Olson ends up picking up the victory, and then we have Mike Zunino and Nelson Cruz, who both hit huge home runs in this game to secure this victory. For the Athletics, Ben Zobrist, he went 2 for 4 with a triple-double and RBI, and Billy Butler, he had a good game, 3 for 4 with a double and RBI. But we do end up picking up this victory, 7-3. You can check the description for the other games in this series, and that's pretty much that. So let me know what you guys want to see moving forward with my roster, some decisions that we can make, and I'm out.